Hello, I'm Tom Nowetner. Live in New York State, the upper state part of it, around Binghamton, New York. And I am going on my 13th year for my first dissection. I started this whole journey just before Christmas. I was doing a meal for 500 people. It was a typical day. I got up, you know how everybody does, gets their coffee, stumbles around. I got a sharp pain in my chest, then a sharp pain across my back. I had been an EMT, volunteer fireman, for about 25 years then, and this is 2012. I knew it wasn't a heart attack because the pain went away. My little bit of knowledge at the time, we actually used to give everybody with chest pains aspirins. Think aorta, right? Well, back then, 2012, about 3% survived. It was devastating when they walked in and said, "We don't know what to do with them." The surgeon came in and says, "I'm going to operate on you within an hour." Hour went by. He says, "I'm not going to operate on you. You're too bad." So I laid around for about 2 weeks, and really I didn't improve. I didn't get worse, but everybody was afraid to touch me at the time. And my wife had me shipped down to Long Island North Hospital. And I met a very, very, very interesting man. He was a cardiologist. He was a PhD. He was a researcher. And he put me in the ICU. And I stayed there for about 39 days. And I think I came out the same way I went in. Just with 22 pills twice a day. So that's the beginning of my story. At the time, like I said, it was 2012. Nobody really wanted to touch me. No one knew exactly what to do, and they were afraid of doing anything that might make it worse. So for almost 4 years, I lived in a recliner. I went on the back porch. I went on the front porch. You know, I wasn't able to, or they would they just didn't want me to pick up anything heavier than a milk container. And like I said, I lived this way for almost 4 years. And my wife, God bless her, she went out and found me a GP, a young lady who was, one, available. She had open appointments. And two, she was more of a researcher than anything else. If she didn't know something, she researched it. And that gave me a lot of confidence. The second thing my wife did for me, she found a vascular surgeon. He was in Albany, New York. That's 2 hours and 15 minutes from me. And we went up, we got an appointment, which I think it took like 90 days to get in to see this guy. He's amazingly busy at the time. And he happened to be president of the Vascular Association there in Albany. And he took one look at my CTs and ultrasounds and whatever else, MRIs, God knows at the time. It was just amazing how many things I had tested. And he said, "I have a plan. Come back in 2 weeks." And in 2 weeks, I came back, and these are his exact words. We walked in, sat down, he shook hands, and he said, "I have a plan. It's not a good plan, but I have a plan." So at that point, after 4 years, even if it was a desperate plan, I would have done it. So what he decided was that I had, dissected practically the whole length of the aorta, that he would just start stenting it. So he started at the subclavian, and then he worked on the carotid. And he did those 2 stents, and I came out of surgery and wound up in the bed for, I don't know, a couple of days. Recovered. Thought that was a miracle at the time. It was laparoscopically done. Medtronics got involved, and they were cutting special sizes stents for me. As a young man, I worked out a lot. I used to participate in the World's Strongest Man, if you remember that TV show. My arteries and my venal system were quite large. And of course, from all that, I've stretched them out. And so then he went back in probably a month, 2 months later, and put in the thoracic. And about a year later, he put in the abdominal. Had a huge AAA. About that time, my kidneys started to act crazy. And I mentioned it to him, so he stented both of the kidneys. And then, of course, the Y there that feeds everything, and the 2 femoral arteries. And that took another approximately 4 years. So we're 8 years from my first incident or dissections. I, at the time, was still living under the impression that I couldn't do anything, that anything would harm me, that if I tripped or fall going down the stairs or, whatever incidental thing I did, that was the end of my life. Well, I decided somewhere along that 8th and 9th year that when I was born, there was a date written down for me to leave. So if over the 8 years I hadn't died from all this horrendous things like John Ritter went through, and many of the survivors that I watched their videos, these horrible, just, problems and multiple surgeries and disconnection from family and friends. And that's how I was feeling. I was feeling like I was disconnected from my life and my family and my friends. And I really wanted desperately to get back to my life. So over the last 3 years, I worked at that. Every day I pushed it. Now you have to understand, a lot of the things I did were outside of what the doctor's recommendations were. And I did that solely because I felt that if I pushed myself, I would know when to stop. Well, in the beginning, obviously, I didn't know when to stop, and I fatigued myself quite a lot. But after you do that a couple of times, you learn, and you put together a system of doing things. And in the beginning, I had 10 to 20 steps, and I couldn't lift things. I couldn't even run a power drill. Planting gardens, that was cool. I could sit and plant a garden. Getting up on the lawn tractor, no way. All the things that I had done prior were out of my grasp at that time. So like I said, over the last 3 years, I just put an effort into figuring out what my limitations were, when I had to ask for help, when it was important to let people help, and when it was important not to let them help. So this last year, a couple of friends would ask, how did I do it? A lot of them had catastrophic illnesses. 2 of them had dissections. A lot of them cancer survivors. I was going through this last year old age. I have neuropathy. I had both knees replaced. I had back surgery, L3, 4, and 5, hernia fixed. Old age. I have arthritis. Nothing to do with the dissections, just old age. I'm 73. So that slowed me down a little bit, especially the knee replacements. That was 8 weeks recovering. And I just happened to be started rehabbing my house. And 3 weeks into the rehab, I got put down for 8 weeks recovering from knee surgery. Well, it's this is the 9th week, going into the 10th week, and I'm back at it. I'm out every day. I usually have a good stretch now from 8 o'clock in the morning till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm sitting somewhere yelling at people, not doing anything much, uh, trying to take care of myself. I don't go till midnight anymore like I used to. By the way, I was a chef. So working, 9, 10, 11 hours a day was not a problem. I think that's one of the things that contributed to my dissections. I, I never exercised unless I did in high school, and I did a little bit after high school, but for the rest of the 50 years, exercise was a word I avoided. Um, I always ate well. I was always on a Mediterranean diet, and I was overweight, but I also contribute that to my survival. That I had pounds on and bulk muscle, and there were people around me that had me focused. That if I took care of myself, everything else would come along. And once again, this 2012 to 2024, wow, 24. That's my journey, and that's where I'm at today. So where I'm going, what am I doing? Well, I have a service dog. I speak to organizations. Um, I've developed this, what I call the 60-40 premise. Once you get over the shock and the dismay and the woes of me or the what do I do now syndromes that we go through and facts and life and abilities, I put together a 60-40 program. That's where you use 40% of all your input comes from the doctors. They take care of you physically, your medicine, your mental health, your PT, whatever it is. That's what you need from your doctors and your physical therapists and your whatever, your health group and your people who have that professional interest in you. But they're not there all the time with you. They see you in the office 15, 20 minutes. They adjust your medication or they ask you how you are and do some adjusting to your daily life, but they're gone. You are there 24/7. 60% of everything you're going to get from this point on is up to you. You have to be a realist. After 12, almost 13 years, I realized that no matter what pain medication they gave me, it never worked 100%. It was at most 50%, and most of them only worked 30%. It was a big realization for me that pain medication doesn't end pain, it just helps you tolerate it. Another thing that they don't talk about is homeopathic ways of taking care of your pain, your nervous leg syndrome, if you have that, if your skin drying out. God, all the medicines I take, it dried my skin out terribly. So my wife went in search of the homeopathic way of handling pain and muscle motion and things like that, especially with my legs being almost useless. And I find that the use of essential oils does work. But once again, with essential oils, you have to be careful. You have to do your research. You have to apply it in a small area, see how it affects your skin. But you're only going to get 30 to 50% of any kind of relief, whether it's restless leg or pain or agitation, whatever it is your muscles are going through. But it's something. It helps you get to the next level. The next level of 60% is what is it going on in your head? Are you the person that's limiting yourself? Are you looking at this task and going, well, I don't think I should do that? Well, I've come up with a method. It's called the pizza method. You cut the pizza, right? You don't take the pizza out of the box and start eating it. You always cut it into slices. Well, the pizza method for me is I make it little slices, not those big ones I used to eat. And I break everything down to the smallest component. And I figure out how I'm going to do each one of those components and try to get to the next level of whatever it is. I don't care if it's woodworking or making pottery or walking out in the wilderness for God, whatever reason. Those things are doable for you. They're not doable at the pace you used to do it. They're not doable at the level you used to do it. But you can still enjoy everything in your life. Everything that meant something to you, pre-dissection, pre-aneurysm, pre-AAA, pre-open heart surgery, whatever. You can really, really, really enjoy life again. But you have to do it slowly. And you have to figure out what you can do, what you can't do, and how you should modify your way of going about things. That 60% of your life will give you more joy, more satisfaction than anything else. I love seeing my grandchildren. I have 10 of them. I love seeing my children. Well, sometimes. I have 7 of those. But what I really enjoy is knowing I can get up in the morning, get dressed, and go out and be in my garden, or meet my friends for coffee, or enjoy whatever it is in your mind that gives you peace and understanding. You can make it happen in a modified way, but you can make it happen. Well, that's my whole story. Seems like a long road. Right now, I have about 20 steps before I need to stop. It takes me 2 hours to get all my tools together if I'm going to do something, fix a fence or build a chicken coop, which I have to do this weekend because all this rain knocked down the chicken coop. Sure, I'm not going to be able to knock it out in a day. It's probably going to take me all week, but that's good enough. Your time now is more valuable to you enjoying yourself than being the old person, whatever that is, before your dissections. No. Thank you very much for listening to me. Yeah. Yeah. For 8 years, I let it run my life. And that's only because of the time period that I was in. Now, it's not a death sentence. Now, if treated properly, everybody goes on. Everybody can be successful.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of old practitioners that are still telling you, all right, now that you have an aneurysm or a dissection or you got a bulbous brain syndrome, guess what? You're in the recliner. Well, you're not.
Yeah.
You are not.
2012. How old were you?
I am 73 and 2024.
So
So
12
I
years
guess I was
younger.
60.
Yeah.
60. Well, see, when I was 50, the check engine light came on. And I'm like every American man. I didn't even bother with it. I put a sticker over it until in my 60s I had a complete body misfunction, aneurysms,
Uh,
everything you can think of. So I tell everybody when the check engine light comes on, check it.
check it. Yeah, ignoring those lights is a young man's game, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, that's what they make stickers for.
Right? So when you were first pushing through all of this, did you have any crazy prescription changes that you had to juggle?
Oh, are you kidding me? There was one guy, because I go to this pain clinic. I used to go to the one local. Now I go to the one in Albany, which is much better. Uh, I had a guy. I just gotten where I was 2 years outside my first dissection, and I was 2 years away from my first stent. So I was having a lot of pain, and so they had released me with a modified morphine pump. And what I mean modified, usually every 8 minutes you can take a hit of it. Well, mine was every 4 hours I could take a hit. It was a larger hit, but they thought at the time the reasoning was if you don't have that reward so often, you won't become addicted.
Hmm.
Right. So I mentioned to the pain clinic, always, always be careful about the question. Roll it over in your head and decide how many ways they can answer it. Because I really blew it on this one. I said to him, I can't sleep. I'm having trouble sleeping. And I said, I'm sleeping about 3 or 4 hours. I got it. Give me a couple of days. I got it. And he was a older guy, but not as old as I was. And I'll be honest with you, he was very good. He did help me a lot, 30 to 50% of relief. And I knew from my years of experience with my older family going through that painful death syndrome, I pretty much knew that you never got 100%. But when I realized it was 30 to 50, what am I paying these people for?
Mm. Mm.
You
Yeah.
know,
I
let me
wonder how
drink my
many.
Crown Royal, take a little THC, and leave me the hell alone. Anyway, he says to me, you're going to love this one. This is right out of Michael Jackson. He said, I'm going to give you an editor. It's called propofol. I said, propofol. That's how he said it. Just the shit they give you when they want to put you under so they can cut your chest open.
Dear
I didn't
Christ.
know it. I didn't know it. I'm thinking propofol. Never heard of it. So I'm in my second week of taking this stuff. And let me tell you, I'm sleeping like a baby.
Yeah.
Trouble is, I'm sleeping 20 hours a day, but I'm sleeping. I wake up one day long enough to have something to eat. I watch the TV. Across the screen comes the Michael Jackson shit on his autopsy. You know what they found, right?
The
He was
propofol.
laced. He was laced with this shit. And
Hmm.
some doctor said, well, he's been taking 5 milligrams, what do you say, for many years for back problems and stuff like that. At the time, I was taking 20 milligrams twice a day, along with morphine. Can you imagine what kept me alive?
The
God
dreams.
doesn't. God doesn't want me. The devil thinks I'll take over, and I'm real happy here anyway.
Oh, wow. So then you start to come off of that.
So you can be as high as you want to be. If you watching the TV and the squawking head goes, this guy died from the same thing you're doing, but you're doing a whole lot more than he was doing, it changes your life.
Right?
So I went from morphine to Percocet to oxycodone, oxycontin, uh, every oxy you can think of. Um, I have a list of them. I think there's like 37 different pain drugs I was on at one time or another. So one day we were talking to a friend of mine's kid and saying, you got to dry it out. You got to stop taking these drugs. You got to clean yourself up. You're never going to be anything in your life. He's sitting on our back porch. Hi, Zekiah. I don't think the kid even can hear us, but we're talking to him. All of a sudden, for some reason, out of the blue, it hit me. Take your own advice. Clean up. You know, you're obviously out of control. You're taking a medicine to stay awake for 4 hours, and then you're taking a medicine that puts you to sleep for 20 hours. That's not life.
Mm-mm.
So I got a book from some guy in California who said how to detox on your own and what you have to watch out for, all the vitamins you have to take, all the, what do you call them, electrolytes that your body needs. It gave it all the herbal, homeopathic oils that you had to take. Everything got mixed with honey, because honey is like a natural antibiotic. So anything that you have in your system, it will help heal it. Plus, the honey is a carrier. I didn't know this. Anything you put in honey it will dissipate slower.
Mm.
But it will, you won't lose as much in the transition. The medium of honey will get most of the medicine or oils or whatever it is into your blood system. So I really, I went down the Zen path, Moromuto, and I decided I'm going to do this. And it was a 9-week program that took me 7 months.
Okay.
I always tell that when I'm beginning the speech. I said, "Yeah, I detoxed over on a 9-week program. Took me 7 months." I said I had so much in me, there was no way it was coming out that fast.
How long were you sleeping for 20 hours a day?
I don't.
Damn.
I guess I could look back and see when he gave me the propofol and when I stopped it.
Yeah.
But it was probably close to a year, maybe 9, 10 months.
Goodness. Oh my
Oh
goodness.
yeah. Every time people would leave me notes. I'd be in my recliner sleeping, or I'd be in the bed sleeping. A couple of times I'd just crash down on my workbench, and people would come in and see me, and I always had a notepad, one of these scratch pads, I would carry them, put down notes, because we get old and can't remember. I didn't say that. Anyway, yeah, they would write a note. I was here on this day, just checking on you. Remember, you owe me $10 for the Elks ticket. Or like Barbara, good friend, or usually leave me notes. I was here. I molested you. You didn't even care. But I was happy. See you at dinner on Friday. That's the kind of friends I got. Or what's his name? Richards. Craig Richards left me a note one time. Said, "We videotaped you and put you on YouTube. You got no hits, 0 hits."
Wow.
Reason I couldn't do this yesterday was because I had to do that presentation for service dogs. And, my service dog was trained for balance. And then he was retrained for AFib, to recognize AFib, recognize when my blood pressure went down too low, if I seemed hypoxic, and I give off that odor, he would actually physically force me down and then lay on my lap. He couldn't tell me what was going wrong. I had to analyze that for myself. But he knew something was wrong. There's pheromones coming off my body, like AFib gives off a real distinct pheromone. And he reacted that perfectly every time I had it. And then, a couple of times I got lightheaded and I had to grab onto something that he didn't alert on. But it's situational. We could be in a place that's with a lot of environmental interference. Camus was my best service dog. And I recently lost him. And not because he was sick or anything like that, but because of one person who there's a law, a federal law and a state law here in New York that says you can't interfere with a handler and his service dog for any reason at all. Any reason at all. Do not confine the dog from the handler. Do not try to assist the handler with the dog. It's a real specific law. And this idiot said that the dog lunged at his daughter. And in New York State, we've got more rules than we need. Big thing about dog bites and things. Well, when he lunged at her, which wasn't a lunge, he was just getting her to back up. He did scrape her with his claw.
Mm.
The only way to differentiate across this whole country forensically, that I educate myself in this while I was laying in the bed, you have to take a swab from each wound.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's saliva in it, then it's a bite. If there's dirt in it, that's a claw mark.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because we live out here in Stickland, they didn't do that. They didn't swab the wounds. So they don't know whether it's a bite or a claw mark.
Yeah.
Which it truly was a claw mark because his face never got near the girl.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the worst part for me. I'm sorry about this. One of these guys who were a shoe salesman yesterday got elected to a municipal court here. We have a municipal court system. And now he's a judge. His whole qualification, he's got a 4-year degree in sissy management.
Mm.
And he got elected. He got enough votes. So that now he's a municipal court judge. Well,
You don't have to go to law
idiot,
school to be a judge? That seems interesting.
No. All you got to do is you have to attend a 12-week course after you're elected. This idiot orders my dog put down.
Wow.
And I spent almost $9,000 trying to get some judge to stay this local idiot's order. Of course, I wasn't successful, so they had to surrender the dog and have him put it down.
What a fucking nightmare.
This is just in September.
What a fucking nightmare.
I mean, I went to Italy and picked this dog out. He flew back to America in first class with me. He had his own fucking seat. I bought him over there. I think it was 2,800 euros. Cost me 1,400 euros to get him back to the United States. You know, first class tickets from Italy. Not cheap.
Yeah.
So he and I had him for 2 years.
What the fuck?
And he was perfect with the family. He loved kids. He used to love to lay on him and not let him up. And I swear to God, the dog thought it was funny. But until he had everybody look at him and laughing and everything, he wouldn't get off. But as soon as he realized, oh yeah, everybody sees me now, this is good, he would get off, let him up, and pick on another kid to like.
That's awesome.
He wouldn't. I had 21 months of training out of a 24-month cycle. He was so close to being, done his training. And because of one person's accusation and one person's ego, got a dog bite case, and it's a vicious dog, so we need to put him down. So what that brings me to is right now I'm suing everybody, and I got all these service animal organizations that want updates because this is a big thing. It's across the whole country. There's a lot of information on it because service dogs, and I'm not talking about Smoochie DePoochie, who's a mentally unstable woman, mentally unstable dog trying to keep each other together.
Yeah.
I'm talking about actually trained service dogs, and the whole thing is If you have a service dog in New York State, you have to have a prescription for it because
Interesting.
there's no other way. There is no other way to regulate it because the legislator would have to convene and put the bills together and vote on them and all that shit, and they're all too fucking lazy. So I tell everybody if you want a service dog, you go right to your doctor and you get a prescription for a service dog for balance, a cardio dog, dog for diabetes, whatever it is. That's a fucking service,
Mm-hmm.
not not a
Not a fur baby.
pocket, not a pocket purse pooch.
Yeah.
I have this dichotomy going on in my life with the grief
Yeah.
and all the things that I put up with because I'm 73. I get, dissection is the least of my problems right now. Neuropathy in my feet, arthritis in my hands. You know,
Talk to me about the
what
neuropathy in the feet.
what's that?
Talk to me about the neuropathy in the feet.
Well, that's caused by lack of blood through the venal system
Mm-hmm.
returning, and what it does is it kills all the nerves because it literally starves them.
Is
And
there a blockage? What's the?
well, what it is from my years of weightlifting and doing the strongest man competitions, I worked out very hard, so I blew my aorta to a bigger size.
Yeah.
You do that, all weightlifters have aortas that are larger. And it also blows out your venal system because here you are, you're lifting for shits and giggles 25 pounds. Well, that's 25 pounds of pressure. Especially if you lift it over your head, it's in your arms, it's in your shoulders, it's in your back, it's in your legs.
Grounded all the way down.
Yeah, so your heart's banging away because you got to bring that oxygenated blood back into the core and up into the brain because, if your brain goes dead, you go down,
Mm-hmm.
back to life. So over the years, that working 10, 12 hours in the kitchen, standing on my feet, we didn't have rubber mats back then. If the dishwasher fell down, and you stand on them for a couple of minutes because it's nice and soft. That's a joke. Um, I always wore boots because my grandfather always wore boots. He said, "Don't wear no sneakers. You get no support." And he was right. That's one thing that saved me.
What kind of boots? What kind of boots?
What's that?
What kind of boots?
What kind of boot?
Yeah.
I buy the Ridge boots. Anything that Ridge manufactures, I can tell you, I put maybe 2 heels and 2 soles on it before I got to get rid of it because the top's wearing out. And they're not. You can buy boots $400 or $500. Ridges are always around 100, 150. And then when I take them over to a shoemaker that we have here, and I just have them reinforce things. I like a real tight heel, so he may cinch the heel up for me. All my boots are steel tipped because it helps me when I fall to get up.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't hurt my toes. That's the only reason even my shoes are steel tipped. I have a pair of sneakers that have steel tips in it because when I fall, I have to do the turtle thing and get on my knees and hands, and then I got to stretch out, put my foot out, and the toe. I can't have my toes crushing with my weight as I get up. And I have this whole system of how to get up, how to get down. When you're trapped between something, how do you get out of it? And that was basically because I was in all those scenarios, so I had to figure out how do you do this shit. So I shared that with a few people, but that's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
If you have something to say, like my 60/40 program
Mm-hmm.
or my expanded service dog program, those are the only 2 I have right now. I could let everything else go. Yeah, I could get crazy busy,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a schedule. You can block out my morning, or you can block out my evening, my afternoon before 3. you can't block out anything on Friday. You know, what I'm doing with you is because I want to. The two people that are hooking up the electronics, whatever you want to call it, for the presentation on Monday. And no, I don't do anything on Saturday and Sunday. I'm happy. I found that if I give myself Saturday and Sunday, I can make a 4-day week comfortable.
Yeah, I hear you.
Not stressing myself out. But I violate that rule quite often, and
At
to my detriment.
but also at your pleasure, which is a thing.
This is a pleasure. What I'm doing right now.
Sure.
I'm going to block this, and boy, my day's better because of this.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? But I also spent 2 hours this morning replying to emails and fending people off, and that, you know, this hour or two where we spend together is positive, and it gives me a thought, and I like hearing stories, and I like relaying my story, but it's just pleasure.
Yeah.
But for 2 hours, I had to deal with the people who just want something from me because I have something.
The grind. Yeah.
And that's not who I am. You know who I am? I'm retired. I'm fat and funny, and I am sure as hell going to enjoy the rest of my life because I don't know what date they wrote on when I was born. You know, they put your date of birth and they put the day you're gone. So I'm going to really enjoy whatever time period is from here to there. And that's why I always have interns.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to do the minutia.
Mm-mm.
I mean, the other day, today I wrote 9 emails. The other day I write 17. My wife came home and said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "I had a terrible day. She said, "What was so terrible about it? You sat on your ass on the porch. You had to get up a couple of times and put wood in the wood stove. What was your terrible day?" She's a real Irish girl. She gets down to the roots. I said, "I got to write 17 emails. You know how I'm 2-finger typer and grammatically impaired and spelling abstruse, and come on. You know how hard it is for me to write emails, and then I send it through the grammar checker, and I got to spend another half an hour fixing that." So she looks at me, she said, "Finished bitching?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Good. I don't feel like cooking, and I know you don't. We're going out to eat." And I said, "Oh, no, I don't want to go out to eat. I want to stay here." She said, "Okay." Next thing I do, hear the car going. I said, I think I said the wrong thing.
That's hilarious. Are you?
But those are the way my life is.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you're looking, I don't mind doing things and talking to people and having a little whatever you need me to do.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, I'm going to tell you when I can. And I have an old-fashioned desk calendar.
Really?
You know that the square one that you saw on the secretary's desk? Oh, wait a minute. I got to show you this.
Yeah.
You're
I
going
think I
to
need to
love
see
this.
this.
You're going to love this. Let me clean my shit out of the way, though. Sorry. My desk looks like everybody else in my house. A shit hit it. Storm hit it.
Everything, everywhere. I got a bigger screen over here.
See, it's just a pad.
Yeah.
It's got everything. You see how I got it all written in?
Yeah.
Now, what I do is I write it on my calendar and I put it in my phone. From the calendar to the phone calendar.
All right.
Which, as sophisticated as I am with computers and things,
Yeah.
and we all know that I'm off the charts, not in the good way. Yeah, I'm pretty organized.
Hey,
And I
man.
block out times. I block out days. I block out times. People go, but it's only an hour. And then those people go, it's only, we can make it 40 minutes. You don't get it.
No, no,
You
no.
want to do 40 minutes at 4 o'clock? I ain't doing shit at 4 o'clock, but relaxing. You don't get my life. My life doesn't function like that anymore. It did. I used to bend over backwards making people's dreams come true. The only problem was my dreams weren't coming true.
7
But
kids,
yeah,
10 grandkids. I feel like.
you'll see. People people will hype up these things, and I'll listen to them for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the hype, and then I'm crushing their dreams in 3 minutes. So we need you to open up our first conference. No. What you need is somebody professional. You need somebody that knows what they're talking about, who's studied this, who has a degree in public speaking.
No,
Someone
no.
that I can give a text to that will make it sound literate instead of having Tom Bumblefuck come out and slur his way through everything.
No. I think you're cutting yourself short. They're right. I hate to say it.
Well, the one thing you can't do is hurt my feelings because I don't have any.
I had a feeling once.
I experienced the feeling. I think it was back when I first met my wife. I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now. You know how much money? Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I've been married longer than Christ was on the earth. Think about it. If I did not have that wife, those kids, grandchildren, do you know what I could have done with my life? Nobody cares. Nobody's listening. I'm a screaming man in the wilderness. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make a joke. But that's pretty good for an amateur
Oh,
comic.
that is funny.
That was pretty good for an amateur comic.
Oh my
right off the top
God.
of my head.
Oh, nobody's listening. What's for dinner, Easter?
I'm not doing it.
Yeah?
Two of my daughter-in-laws are doing it. Now I hear it's going to be ham and prime rib, baked potatoes and mashed potatoes, because I like mashed potatoes, but the rest of them want baked potatoes. Bunch of heathens.
Yeah.
And let's see, what else? I'm making the pies.
Mm.
I broke down this year and said I'd make the pies. So I got like 3 of the grandkids coming over, and I'll just sit there while they work. You gotta delegate
Yeah, you do.
to teach your grandchildren. At least that's what I'm going to tell them.
How are you supposed to get this experience if I'm not making sure you do it wrong?
Yeah, don't you want to have something after I'm gone to remember me by? Most of them I have burns from my cigars.
You're mine.
You have a routine to start your day?
I get up, I take a shower. Well, I brush my teeth first, and then I take a shower because I don't like. I wait for the toothpaste to dissolve out of my mouth before I drink coffee.
Yeah,
Right, and
definitely.
so the reason for this is just kind of like one of those. If I do this right, I'm doing it properly. You don't want caffeine right as soon as you wake up. Okay, because you're still in that REM sleep is still
Right.
in your bloodstream, and apparently when you drink caffeine it binds to that molecule, which is why the people that suck through caffeine all day long, it's still binding to that molecule and it's still making
Yeah.
them feel like they need more coffee to operate. So you have to wait like 60 minutes, 30, 60, 90 minutes, whatever that is. But by the time I'm no longer tasting the toothpaste, it's a pretty good time for me to go ahead and have coffee. So I won't even have my first coffee till like 11 in the morning.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I won't have more than 3, but my last cup of coffee is 2 o'clock. That cup is the last cup that I'll have, and then I won't eat dinner until like sometimes 8:30 or 9 o'clock. But I don't eat breakfast or lunch. I just I just
Are
go.
you 1 meal a day?
Yeah.
Is that fasting or is that just your practice?
Well, so this is an interesting thing, right? When you start researching like why we eat 3 meals a day and you start looking back on, because like I used to get in trouble as a kid, as a child, by because I didn't want to eat breakfast. My mom fed us big giant meals at the end of the day, and I was stuffed in the morning and I just didn't want to eat anymore, and I would just like I would shoot like she would force food. She would put food down, and I'd be like, I'm not hungry, and she thought I was being an
Yeah.
obstinate child. And I was like, no, I'm just literally no room for food right now. Can we just stop with this song and dance? But my father was in the
Right.
military, so he would like 6 o'clock in the morning. It's just lights on. Get out of bed.
Yeah.
All right. So my mom would feed us at 6 o'clock in the morning. We just ate. So in any event, when once I started having control of my own feeding, I would only eat twice a day anyway. So I would always skip
Okay.
breakfast, right? But I would eat a lunch, and then I would have a dinner, and then a lot of my eating was just kind of social. Okay, just kind of social. Um, but then so the roommate I had at the time, um, he was a once a meal eater, and I was just like, I would watch him, and he would do the thing he would do is he would eat at the very end of his day, and when he got sleepy from eating, he would use that as his night clock, and he would just pass out, and then he would wake up in the morning and start his day again, and he would have the whole day to burn that off, right?
All right. Very interesting.
Yeah, and I was like, and I watched him do this for a year, and then I was like, all right, well, I mean, I really am only eating to eat in the first place. Like, how long until I'm
Right.
hungry? Right. So you start doing this research. So on the Joe Rogan Experience, I can't remember who this. I think he was an Ironman triathlete. I can't remember what his. He was on there for a wholly different subject that they were talking about. And when the diet came up, because he was like Joe was exploring his how many calories are you burning for your workouts, whatever. How do you keep those calories together? When and how much do you eat? When do you find the time? I think this guy was an ultra marathoner. That's right. He would run hundreds of miles or 200 miles, giant races. And I eat like a Viking lord at the end of every day, but that's the only time I eat. And he's like, and I'll have like a 5 course meal. He's like, I eat
Right.
thousands of calories at the end of my day. He's like, and then
Right.
I wake up and I burn that shit off all day long. And so he goes, it's really hard when you first transition into this once a day thing. He's like, the first thing you have to understand is your body is programmed by your behavioral patterns. So if you
Okay.
were eating breakfast, your body's going to be like, hey, it's breakfast time, right? It's just your body saying, hey, we usually eat breakfast. It's a behavioral pattern, right? And then
Right.
if you miss it, your body's gonna be like, well, maybe he's distracted, so let me make this alarm a little louder, right? And you
Yeah.
feel a little bit more hungry. Well, it turns out you're gonna feel that for every time you have a meal throughout your day. So if you eat 3 times a day, you're
Okay.
gonna feel those feelings. I only ate twice a day, so I only felt it twice a day. On the
Okay.
fourth day, so 3 days of these insistent we should be eating right now feelings. 3 days after that, those signals are ghost signals.
Very interesting.
They're not insistent. They're not persistent. They're like, I could eat. And then they go away.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I found it very interesting that was what he was explaining, right? So he said it in a much more easier
Right.
to manage way, right? But I was like, all
Right.
right, I'll give that a shot as a science experiment because at the very least I can replicate this and see how that works. And he was completely right. On the fourth day, I was like, this is
Go.
ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked was because on Joe Rogan, he had this nutritionist that works with the military, and he was talking about uh, controlling your eating and your life, and he bonded the two. Which, to me, being in the food industry, everything is separated, right? You sleep, your wake time, your eating time, and it's
Mm-hmm.
all regimented by the clock. And he can't. So I quickly went and bought his book. Very interesting the way the guy writes. It's a little hard to understand, but it's called organizational lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a whole routine when you wake up in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
the things you do that necessarily isn't only for your body, your physical body, but also for putting your life in order, opening up, like you said. I don't want a cup of coffee first thing in the morning. I don't want a cup of coffee after I brush my teeth. I want a cup of coffee that's going to taste like a cup of coffee. And if that means 11 o'clock, fuck it,
Yeah.
you know? And that's what he was really about. He was about that organizational principle. So I filled out all this paperwork, of course, because that's what they want you to do, and sent it back. And you can send them 24.95, and they send back a program,
A profile or a program?
profile of you, and a profile of and a
So
program,
both. Okay.
and then every fourth week you'll get another program. If you like the one you're on, you stay. Blah blah blah, and then
Okay.
after a year your contract's over and you never hear from them again. Thank God. If I knew this was going to be this, I wouldn't let my daughter do it. But I gotta say, he came up with some really good ideas.
Sure.
And if I look back at my childhood, because my father was from World War II, it's exactly what he did. And he was taught it in the military.
Mm.
And now this guy, some 70 years since World War II, 74 years since World War II, is bringing back the same premise. But he's modified it to fit individuals rather than one standard like the military did.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start it on Monday. So I'll keep you abreast of how it works out. But my wife, her alarm set for 5 o'clock,
Mm.
and she's out of the bedroom at 5. I don't want to get up.
Mm-hmm.
When I had the dog, he'd pound on the thing, but I had a routine. I could get him to lay down, go back to sleep with me. So about 5:30, now I'm ready to get up. She's out of the closest bathroom, so I don't have to walk across the house, and so I'll get up at 5:30. So he's regimented everything thereafter.
Okay.
Like I do my 45 minutes of chair exercise.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Exercise in the morning. Easiest time to get
yeah.
it done.
Well, I wake up. I'm the guy who has to brush his teeth first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know why. It's just the way my mother trained us, I guess. And then I have to drink 32 ounces of water,
Mm.
which 32 doesn't sound like much,
It's a lot
but
of
first
water.
thing in the morning, it's a little. It takes. So I drink it in. I don't drink it all at once like they want you to. I do a little bit at a time, 4 ounces at a time or something.
Do they ever add lemon to that?
You can add any fruit
Mm.
that the seeds are not on the outside. So
Okay.
lemons, limes. I got lemons and limes, but to be honest with you, it's too much for me to deal with in the morning. Probably cut my finger off. Anyway, so I do a 45-minute routine, 4 days a week, 2 different routines. And it's all I can do
Mm-hmm.
because my balance is so shitty. I can sit and do some yoga and I do some strengthening exercises. Because the reason we're remodeling the house is because they've been telling me now for 2 years, but they're telling me I'm real close to going into a wheelchair. And all my friends that are in wheelchairs say the same thing. Stay out of the chair as long as you can, because once you get in, you never get out.
Okay.
So for 2 years, they've been beating me over the head. I haven't even picked a wheel. This is how bad it is with me. It's been 2 years. They brought me every wheelchair in the world. Got them all pre-approved. I sabotage every order somehow, some way, because
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want. I don't want it in the house. If it's
Yeah.
in the house, I might use it. So that's
What's
the mirror.
what's the persistence on you getting into the wheelchair? Is it the neuropathy of the
Plus my
legs?
fall rate. My fall rate's astronomical.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's why they're doing this nerve conduction test next
I love it. I love it.
They're doing it on the 4th.
Okay.
Isn't that nice? My birthday's on the 3rd. My present is nerve conduction. And I guess this is called the pins and needles one. This is where they put needles into your nerve centers and then they stimulate different parts of your body to see which nerve center is receiving. Not necessarily, 100% scientific, but this is how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you get these needles in your toes and your heel and everywhere else you can think of.
Yeah.
It takes about an hour and 45 minutes of them sitting there sticking needles in and out of you. So that's why they call it the pins and needles. And about 40% of the people can't, and they give up. They say, you can't stick me anymore. I'm leaving. So I figure I'll do some edibles before I leave.
Goddamn
Hopefully
right.
Hopefully I'll go to sleep halfway through the procedure.
Right. I have
What's wrong with him?
I have an
What's wrong
anecdotal.
with him?
He seems so mellow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. But when I made the conversion off of all pain medicine, it was still way before the legalization of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I I bought a book. That's me. I got a problem with buying a book. Timothy Leary's cookbook. It's from the 70s.
Okay.
And it was written by a bunch of people, actually. They thought it would sell better if he put his name on it.
They're probably right.
And so I'm reading, I want to learn how to make, because I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't inhale, so I want to know how to, how do I take this stuff? And how do I, make it as close to measurable as possible? Because, a bunch of tobacco in a roll and a light is not scientific. But I wanted to be closer on dosage because if I could get to something that actually worked, I want to be able to replicate it. So,
Okay.
So here I am, one Saturday morning. A good friend of mine who was just across the street grows marijuana. That's his crop, and so he taught me how to reduce the marijuana to an oil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a whole method. I still do it, even though it's legal in New York State and you can buy it. I still like mine better. And once I have the oil and it cools and you strain it and strain it and strain it, get all the impurities out of it, of course, you can actually test it for its potency.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to test it. So I test it, and then I know how much I want per gummy. So I have this formula where I put in this much oil to this much solid mix, heat it up, and then I pour it into the molds, mix it good, heat it up, and pour it into the mold. So I get a pretty consistent dose, is what I'm getting to. And I've gotten, how many years now? Gotten to a good dose that I can take. It all depends. If I want to see a show at 10 o'clock, I'll take it at 10:30. 9:30. If I want to go to bed early, half an hour before I'm ready to go to bed. And I've gotten to the point with it that I'm a little paranoid. I don't even want to try not to do it. Do you understand that?
No, I get
it. Some nights I'll see it sitting there on the side of the bedside, and I go, do I really need that? And luckily, the less crazier side of my brain goes, take the fucking thing.
Every time.
So it's been a long time, and I've never had a night where I didn't take it.
I'll tell you what will happen, right? So I take tea breaks on a regular basis, right? So when I go down to North Carolina, those guys they're both in the nuclear industry, so they don't smoke at all. So I don't smoke when I'm down there. and
Right.
the dream state's very intense when it's out of your system.
I imagine it does.
It's very intense. I was perplexed, and so now I look forward to the tea breaks just to see what my brain's been kind of munching on there
Yeah.
for a little while.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine used to give up alcohol for Lent, 40 days of Lent before
Mm-hmm.
Easter. That's when I was a practicing Catholic. I practiced to stay away. But he does the exact same thing, and he swears by it. I mean, he's like me, true believer to the point where we're not going to mess with it.
Yeah, it's the same problem. Like when I learned about, because when you have sleep problems, right? Like I'm jealous of people who can go to bed at night every night, head hits the pillow, and they're out
My
like a
wife,
light.
30 seconds after she hits the pillow, she's fucking snoring. I hate going to bed with her. She
Right?
just she puts her head down. She says whatever the last things in her brain is. She has her phone on the side of the bed in case one of the grandkids need us in the middle of the night. You know, and the next thing I know, she's out like a light.
Yeah.
And I've asked her over the years, and she says, "I just take all my problems, I hang it on a tree, and then I go to sleep. And in the morning, I get up, I pick up my problems, and I go about my day." And it's that Irish shit, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, just hang it on the tree. It'll be there in the morning.
She's blessed.
I never found a tree, I guess.
That's awesome. No, but so you don't want to drink caffeine in the afternoon if you have sleep problems. You know what else you don't want
Here's
to
the
do?
thing.
Huh?
Here's the thing. I drank caffeine from the time I walked in the kitchen to the time I left. Sometimes 11, 12 o'clock. Never affected my sleep. In fact, I had this one doctor who used to come in. He said, "I need to do a sleep study on you. I got to figure this out. If you're drinking that much coffee, there's no way you can sleep at night." But I used to go home, take a shower because you get out of a commercial kitchen. Not only are you greasy and yucky, but you stink. So I would come in, all my clothes went into a plastic barrel with a lid because, sometimes you're full of fish, sometimes you're full of whatever, you don't want that stinking up the house. And I get in the shower and I scrub with Dawn dish liquid and Dial soap. Just make sure that I got everything out of my pores and everything.
Wow.
And then, I'd go in, I'd have a glass of water or whatever it is, check the kids, kick the dog, and go to bed.
Hmm.
That was my routine. Just, I don't even remember half the time just laying down. I just lay down in the bed. But since the dissections, I have a lot of weird dreams, especially when I was on the pain meds,
Yeah.
and they persist to this day. Well, see, I can't say that because since I went on the THC before bedtime, I don't dream real bad dreams. I dream these real disconnected, weird dreams.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't dream horror dreams anymore. I
Mm-mm.
don't, I don't have that panic about something. I come awake very easy and very smooth.
Yeah.
So
Also,
that
I
works for
am.
me. Once again, this is what works for me.
No, I
Is
hear
it
you.
scientific? If it's scientific, no. Is it regulated? No. Does it make any sense? Well, probably about 30 to 50% because that's all you're going to get.
Right. No, I hear you. The other thing, right, is like you don't want to, like, I was a heavy reader, right, all through high school. Like I would read,
Right.
and you don't want to read in bed. You don't want to associate your bed with anything other than,
Yeah, that's what this guy says.
late night
He says,
activities. Yeah.
and all you guys that have those pads and pens, and you're going to write down whatever you think of, great experiment, fabulous idea about making money, you're going to write it down. Get rid of those too. I don't want those in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Too much. It's on your brain that you can do that, and you can't get into a good sleep. What
Yeah.
else did he say?
No,
Pitch black,
TV in the
no lights.
bedroom. Nope.
Yeah, no TV, no lights at all. He doesn't want any lights in the bedroom at all,
Mm-hmm.
even a night light.
Yep.
So I got to rearrange the bedroom a little bit, and I'm going to start on Monday. I'll let you know if it works.
So the one guy, the down in North Carolina, the reactor operator, he was on a rotating shift, and so he learned about all of the hacks of how to turn over his sleep schedule because sometimes he had to work nights, sometimes he had to work days. And over the course of his years, he refined it down to turning down the air conditioning so that you're like it's like 68, right? So it's like
Okay.
5 degrees lower than what you normally have it. So everything gets cooler, and then you get nuzzled into your thing. And he swore by a weighted blanket. He was like, once I transitioned
Yeah, my
to
wife
a
has one.
weighted blanket,
She
so
has a
much
10-pounder.
easier. Yeah, so much easier to fall asleep. He was like, I don't know what it is, but between the cold and that, he could turn his schedule around. But he was like you, where he would drink coffee all day, every day,
Yeah.
all day, every day.
Caffeine has never, in fact, like I said, I had a few people who wanted to do blood workup and studies and things, see how caffeine
Mm-hmm.
does in my body, what's different in my body. But I think it's just because I did it from being a kid. I mean, we get up in the morning and you either had a half glass of wine and water or you had a coffee because there wasn't anything else.
That's
The
so
milk was
interesting.
for the coffee. It wasn't for you kids. You don't need that vitamin D.
Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's so interesting.
It was a different world when I grew up. I mean, you got to remember when we sat around the table. I had two grandparents in the house, a couple of uncles I didn't even know existed. My parents, all the kids. There was 9 of us. You know, my dad, he would get a half a chicken or a steak, or because the guy was working in the Navy Yard and he was, he needed the food. And of course, all the grandparents, they got, proteins and pastas and salads. And, that was a Mediterranean diet. As soon as the adults got fed, you better get your macaroni and hope you find a meatball.
That's funny.
So, it was a different world than what you grew up in.
I grew
It,
up in a
it makes it,
military household.
yeah. So you understand,
Mm.
and to me, I look people nowadays. They got these straight line lives, and I'm thinking, how's this work? They go from their phone to the computer game, and then they're complaining because they have no life.
Yeah.
Hello,
No, no, no. That's the other thing,
hello.
right? That's the other thing. I remember the world before the internet, and then I helped the internet come to be. And then
Yeah,
it's like, wow, why would anybody want to spend so much time like vacationing in other people's lives on social media?
I never, I, I never understood social media
Hmm.
until September when all this happened with my service dog,
Oh, it's
and
powerful.
then I got the bite. Somebody had made a Facebook page for me.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody I don't know, and the most vicious things were written that you can never believe, all the way to hope you die and hope your kids die, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and we're coming for you, that kind of shit. And I'm thinking to myself, who's got the fucking time? Because my daughter would say, "Have you looked at that website?" And I go, "Not in a couple of days or something. What? Anything more important going on, or the same shit?" She says it's the same shit, but it's awful vicious. You think you should be taking a little more care of yourself. And I'm like, yeah, it's my time to go. I'm gone. See you. Bye. Hope you have a good time with whatever shit I left you. Oh my God.
to
Like my interns, it takes the whole first week for them to understand where I'm coming from, or and how my verbiage is so far from what their verbiage is, that it takes them a while to understand how I communicate. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm only fucking 73. I worked side by side with my grandfather, and he was well into his 80s when I was working with him. And I understood him perfectly.
Yeah.
But we have gone so far that everything seems to be different. Is that a better word? It's not bad. It's not good. It's different. My granddaughter Sarah said to me, she was watching some of the stuff on Aortic, and she says, "Grandpa, you could probably do a half an hour broadcast. You're funny enough for the internet." Like she was throwing me in the garbage can.
You're funny enough for the internet. You are. You've got all kinds of spunk. Yeah.
So I was going to, just to bust Karen's balls, I was going to say to her, "Hey, Karen, how about a half an hour slot of the Tom's Funnies of the day or something?"
Wow.
I'll do 4 shows a week for you. And my wife, God bless her, she's always in the right place at the right time. She raised all these kids, so she's got those mama
the
ears.
Mom thing happens.
Yeah. She heard me, and when I got off, she says, "Yeah, that's not going to happen."
See, now then you talk to me, and I say things like, if it's just like a cigar break with Tom, and that's a time limit that's in your hand, right?
Well,
Yeah.
the funny part about it, I could do it in the morning,
Sure.
and you guys can put it on anytime you want. And I tried to talk to her about that. She says, "Yeah, we need a dishwasher hooked up, and we need my lights over the island done. Oh, and that outlet you keep telling me you're going to fix in the kitchen, the one that only works halfway." So,
Right.
remember, this is what I got going on. The fucking dissection and how that interrupted my life. My knees, a house that I gotta put back together again. A wife who wants her kitchen. I don't understand. The woman doesn't cook. I got all these grandkids that I love them, and I can't say no to them. But I stop at 3:00.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people want 5:00, 6:00, 7:00.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting in my chair and there's a couple grandkids, and they know when I'm on air, we call it on air. I have these old signs from CBS Studios in New York. It says on air. You click the button.
Light. Yeah.
Yeah. So no matter where I am, when I have one of those, it's clicked on, and the kids know they can run around, but they can't get loud. So that's pretty funny. That's just one of the accommodations they've made for me. But otherwise, they make no accommodations for me. I mean, 7:00 at night, we're babysitting, and Catherine says, Pop, you know what we need to do? I said, "What's that?" She says, "We need to take a ride." I said, "A ride?" 7:00 at night, Pop-Pop's done. She says, "No." I said, "I looked it up on that Waze thing." She says, "It's only 4-minute drive. We're going to go over to Cumberland Farms. We're going to get some ice cream sandwiches and some caramel popcorn. And then we're going to come back, and I'm going to sit on your lap, and we're going to watch a movie." Yeah, I'm going to last like 10 seconds of that movie. Because it's probably something from Disney, and I can't stand it. Anyway, so this is the children. This is probably, she's 7. She's already got the manipulation down. Ice cream sandwiches and caramel corn, and I'm the one that should make it happen, like I'm Houdini or whoever.